Let's bring in NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Catherine Christian also with us. Thank you all, ladies, for joining us on this breaking news day. Lisa, give me your reaction to the guilty verdict on all three counts.
It's not a surprise, and yet there is something unbelievably tragic about the trajectory of this case. Let's talk about the facts first. Not only is Hunter Biden someone who has very publicly struggled with addiction, but the way in which these charges came about was through the finding of the gun. 11 days after he purchased it, the gun was tossed by his then girlfriend and his sister-in-law, Hallie Biden, the widow of Beau Biden, in a trash can outside an upscale grocer in Wilmington. When Hunter Biden realized that that's where his gun had gone, he immediately took steps for it to be retrieved that ultimately led to the charges at issue here. Let's also think about the plea deal and how it unraveled. Hunter Biden had what is known as a diversion agreement on gun charges and a deferred prosecution agreement on tax charges that were interwoven together. The reason it fell apart last summer principally is because Judge Noreika, who presided over this trial, said it wasn't appropriate for her to be the person in the first instance to determine whether Hunter was in compliance with the diversion agreement. Prosecutors and Hunter Biden's lawyer both wanted that. Why? For reasons that were unspoken, because there was a fear that if Joe Biden were not reelected and former President Trump were to be elected as president, that a Republican-led Department of Justice could retributively seek to find Hunter Biden in non-compliance with the terms of that deal. That's why they wanted the judge to supervise it. And she said, that's not my job. That's how the whole plea agreement fell apart. That's what led to today's indictment and then trial and, of course, conviction. Again, not at all surprising, but still, nonetheless, Anna, a real tragedy.
A lot has been said, Catherine, about just how unusual this case was. The fact that Hunter Biden had this gun for just 11 days, never fired it, it wasn't used to carry out another crime of some sort. What's your big takeaway with this verdict today and where we are?
Well, exactly what Lisa said. Remember, a year ago, these same prosecutors were offering him a diversion program for 2 years and then charges dismissed. And I think it would be an outrage if a year later, it's called the trial penalty. He will be penalized for going to trial and then get incarceration. He is a very sad figure, as are many people throughout this country. And he will now be, when he's sentenced, a convicted felon. There, in my humble opinion, is no need to incarcerate him for these charges. He should get the same diversion program. And, you know, once an addict, always an addict. I'm assuming he's in recovery, but it will help him. But so that's the sad part, is that he went to trial. It would have been a miracle if there was an acquittal. It would have been the jury doing nullification, saying we're sympathetic to him, which you're not supposed to do as a jury, but some jurors do that. So it is not an unfair verdict. They followed the law, but it's a sad verdict.
Laura, Ken outlined a little bit of kind of the what's next, but as you look at the picture, like what is, point A to point B, what does that look like? What does this verdict now mean for Hunter Biden?
He's in even more legal jeopardy coming in just a few months in September on just the heels of the November election. He is facing 9 counts for tax-related charges, including tax evasion and filing a false return. Essentially didn't pay his taxes to the tune of $1.4 million on time. Now, his attorneys will tell you they paid it all back. Legally, doesn't matter. Doesn't of no moment, and he is still facing some serious jeopardy there. There are 3 felonies, the rest are misdemeanors, all of which would have gone away if he had been able to secure this plea deal. But his lawyers, prosecutors, were clearly not at a sort of a meeting of the minds about the full scope of what that agreement would entail. He thought it would be sort of a universal agreement. He would be free and clear. Prosecutor said, not so fast. The judge said, are you sure you really understand what you're pleading guilty to? And he clearly did not understand. And so it all fell apart. And so he's now going to face this other trial. Now, he can plead guilty today to those charges.
So he could still go forward with a plea deal in that case.
And if you're a lawyer, you have an obligation to at least present that to him. Seeing how this went today, he needs to think think through whether he needs to plead guilty to those charges. I'm not suggesting that he should. I'm not suggesting that he will. But his lawyers, if they're good, are going to counsel him seriously about whether he needs to have a plea as it relates to those charges in September, because all of this is going to come out. If we think the evidence was bad in this trial and embarrassing in this trial, just wait until the trial in September, where they're going to hear about all the things that he was spending money on, not his taxes.
And so stay with us. Let me bring in former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissmann. Andrew, was there anything you think Hunter Biden's attorneys could have done differently here that might have made their defense stronger?
No. The facts here were very strong for the state. I think that basically this was a case where they had to hope for jury nullification. I think that what you're seeing today and what we saw in New York in connection with the Trump criminal case is jurors doing their job. And it's a real testament to our jury system and to the rule of law in this country that in both situations, jurors heard the facts, they weighed credibility, and made decisions. And it didn't matter if you're dealing with the former president of the United States for what is obviously a far more serious crime, or you're dealing with the son of the president. These are jurors who did their duty, and the rule of law held in both situations. As to what Abbe Lowell, Hunter Biden's lawyer, could do here or could do in the tax case, I completely agree with Laura that the tax case will have very salacious facts, but obviously that's a very different case and there's a different legal standard there. So it remains to be seen whether there is a better defense to those types of charges. I will say it's a little bit of a question for me as to why, in connection with this gun charge, these 3 gun charges here, why there wasn't a plea worked out, at least with respect to these charges. I know that there is going to be a challenge to the constitutionality of these statutes, and it may be that's the reason that Hunter Biden didn't just plead straight up to the indictment. But the facts here were truly overwhelming, so it's not surprising that he was convicted. I don't think it would be surprising to Abbe Lowell, a very experienced defense lawyer, or to Hunter Biden himself.